in terms of designing this game, where do you find yourself in terms of uh, passion? Because the desire to design is constant through all of role playing, but the
Hmm.
desire to bother other people with your design, that is where we are looking at some kind of strange personal, you know, quirk. In your case, tell me about this.
Well, I guess I'm really doing this for myself and to some extent for my friends. I've got a hard disk full of half-finished designs, and it feels like having an attic full of paintings, all of which have some white canvas in the corner or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm passionate about this project, so I really want to finish it this time. I want to get it complete. I want to get it completed and out there. And well, that's really it. I don't expect there to be many takers. In fact, I don't really plan on doing a marketing campaign or something. Yeah, I mean
Right.
there are some circles I move in, and they will be made aware of this. That's it.
I consider this rather healthy. I think that
Hmm.
designing in this capacity, whatever may happen in the future, is a really good idea. My as a consultant, my big fear is when someone says the Kickstarter begins in 2 months. Can you fix
Yeah.
this? Or, what can you do? And what they really want is for me to sprinkle some fairy dust on the whole thing,
Hmm.
right? And throw my name into the marketing. So I have tried to compromise with that priority in the past, and there is no compromise. Now I just say, find somebody else. So let's take a look at this. This is in the perfect state. It is in the state of a bunch of ideas and potentially a table with some friends.
Hmm.
Talk to me a little bit now about two questions.
Hmm.
One is, given the idiom, given the place, the location, the atmosphere, the tone, the topics of play. In older vocabulary, I would say the setting, but I think it's more dynamic than that. So, given that, why? What is fun about that? What is good about that? What is your energy in terms of communicating that to other people?
Hmm. I'm not sure I get the question. What do you mean by communicating to other people? I
Ah,
mean, I know what's cool about it and what's going to be fun, but
those are both transitive terms, so they are sufficient. Yes, what is cool about it? What is fun? And I am not talking about procedures of play. I am talking about the topic.
mhm. Well, that actually does have to do a bit with procedures. I'm trying to refine dungeon crawling to my tastes. Yeah, I'm already a big fan and have a successful campaign. And I want to do more. I want to address various smaller issues or things that I think could be done even better. And I think the project is going to do just that.
Okay, but that's moving into my second question. This is the first one
Well,
still. And I'm interested in, when you say dungeon crawling, this creates a circular thing. It's gaming about gaming, meta
mhm.
commentary. I'm not interested right now in your meta commentary. I am interested in the thing itself. It's a very this has Nibelung in the title.
Mhm.
This is, tell me about the fantasy itself. What does it look like when a character does a thing and you say,
Mhm.
now that's the kind of thing this game is supposed to do?
Yeah, the
What
characters
is that?
go into
Yeah. Don't
to dark
explain
and
it,
dim.
describe it.
Okay. Well, the characters yeah, they go into dark places like the Black Forest and settings like that, or places like that, to retrieve treasures and secrets, or possibly save some kidnapped boys and girls, things like that. And they will face monsters and natural threats, um, and hopefully overcome them. But I expect many of them to die.
Well, let's kind of get to this Germanic Black Forest literary and cultural grounding that you are talking about. And in that, I know I have my own responses to it, but my understanding, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that this is not generic fantasy. This is a specific cultural, uh, a specific sense of content of what sort of things are appropriate foes, what sort of problems are appropriate problems. I certainly think that that the folk tales of the strange towns and the deep forest, and the uncertain status of children, particularly if they are a little bit outside the family structure, or a little bit outside, or underprivileged in the economics. The pervasive sense of fear.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that I feel communicated by some of the terms that you have used already in text to me, and a little bit right here. So,
Yes.
in that sense, instead of facing generic goblins, and if we get tough enough, a generic dragon, instead, characters may find themselves facing what?
Some that is actually a small design problem, because some of the creatures will be known from their names, like trolls and dwarves and so on, but they're going to be the dwarves and trolls of Germanic legend and not the D&D versions.
Perfect. So, first of all, forget all those other people and how they may react. You are talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that sense, when you say folkloric Germanic troll, I hear you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that stated, I think we are getting an idea of, and again, the kinds of problems may involve collecting treasure and things, but they also perhaps involve things like to use the wrong word, but the traditional word, fairy tale problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
So now that that is the answer to my number one, now the question for number two. You've you've jumped to this question, or tried to several times, so I think you are ready
Yes.
for it, which is, why bother with your particular quantitative and organizational approach? And I don't ask this as a marketing question. I'm not interested
Mm-hmm.
in a marketing answer. I am interested in your answer for yourself, or even just to ask it without expecting a verbal answer, which
Mm-hmm.
is, what is gained for you by a design specifically with its own features that expresses this?
Mm-hmm. Yes. In my setting, there are certain, I would say, magical laws that are applied once you cross over into the
Mm-hmm.
monstrous realm. And these laws serve a dual function. On the one hand, they should evoke fairy tales and old legends, and on the other hand, they should foster a smoother flow of the game. Well, that sounds a bit weird. I'll give you an example. the characters can only take 3 items
Right.
with them.
Right.
And that is, I think, more of a fairy tale vibe where people don't carry 100 feet of rope and caltrops and a
Mhm.
grappling hook and so on and so forth. Just 3 items. And these will be subtly enchanted. So, for example, if you bring a water skin, it actually has an endless supply of
Right.
water,
Right.
unless you test it. If you test
Mhm.
it and try to fill a basin or something, it runs out and
No, I
it's
get all
over.
that. Never mind. Again, you are starting to worry about other people who are not me.
Uh,
Right now, we are talking about the sense that um, there are topical constraints that remove distraction. They
mhm,
remove distraction from the topic of play, the basic aesthetic of play. It's a little bit like if you were to uh, play a game with, this is a completely different example, which is why I am raising it. You are
mhm,
going to play a game with soap opera and lots of adult content with
mhm.
anthropomorphic cartoon characters.
Yes.
And somebody says, well, how did the cat people evolve? Go away, right? You
Yes.
go away. And so I understand that what you are talking about is a very pragmatic application of the aesthetic. So you are saying, if I hear you correctly, that in this game we will have constraints, parameters, options, which not only evoke but express the actual things that these stories do.
Mhm. Yes.
So okay, all that aside, we I would like to dig into that eventually a little deeper, like
Mm,
why. Traditional Germanic folkloric culture is over. It's all chocolate and NATO now. So who gives
mhm.
a fuck, right? I mean, if you wanted to go read the stories, they are there. So that's in a powerful question, and it's worth asking, or sorry, worth considering. But you shouldn't answer it to me. You are not accountable to
Yeah.
me for that.
Mhm.
But I just want to raise it there as the great big evil question. So
Mhm.
that stated, let's take a look actually at any kind of consequential activity during play. When have you seen somebody confront the kind of foe that works for you in the context of the confrontation as well? Not just like let's run a fight and see how it goes. That's not what I mean. I mean the context of the fictional situation in which this confrontation sits. Um, what does that look like if you can have an example, preferably a real example? If not, then kind of an idealized one. Imagine the players who completely understand. You don't have to
Mhm.
teach them anything, they get it.
Well, for example, from actual play or
Excellent.
from a crawl, where players encountered a room with big mirrors, some set piece with monsters and so on. And they said, oh, those mirrors, they must be worth a fortune. Let's get them out of here. And they were too big to the transport, so they went back, got a lot of henchmen, and went down there and had a lot of bloody fights and lost some henchmen, I think, and they transported them back out. And I had to settle on deciding how much they were worth and so on.
Okay, so the uh, the context here then is the change in wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking at these characters before this event and after this event, they are wealthier. What does this mean in terms of situations of play? What kind of situations can wealthy characters be in or what can they deal with next in ways that other characters would not. If we let's examine those characters and say everything else is the same. All the injury results are the same. The number of henchmen lost is the same. The actual locations traveled to and the foes and everything, all the same. But for whatever reason, they did not profit from the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what can these characters in my construction not do, or what is different about their choices now from the ones in your example?
Mm-hmm. They're probably not ready to go deeper into the dungeon. They'll have to clear out or tackle challenges farther up in the dungeon um, because they haven't gained the power to go down. They might, but then the chance is even higher that they're going to die.
Right. So wealth then translates into the capacity to be more effective against more powerful or more mysterious foes.
Exactly.
It does. Okay. Now, I don't think it will surprise you to consider some of the historical games that have
Mm-hmm.
taken this extremely seriously. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, across most of its titles, actually does not count as much in this regard as one may think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One may acquire a single magical item which has as much experience point value as and wealth value as anything else, or more than the equivalent amount of gold. So here, let's take a look at this. We should look, first of all, at one of the finest role playing games in history, Tunnels and Trolls, 5th edition, 1979. No
Mm-hmm.
question there. The game, which, in my opinion, well, in its original form and then reaching its apex here, codified the dungeon crawl,
Mm-hmm.
and Dungeons and Dragons spent a lot of time trying to catch up. So, with this in mind, we say what is important about Tunnels and Trolls treasure acquisition? Is
Mm-hmm.
it just a budget? Is it only a budget for going and getting other things, higher armor, better weapons, things like that? And it does do those things. And you can't get a better weapon without it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But here are some interesting nuances about treasure in that game. First of all, um, the only way for a wizard to acquire new spells is to pay for them. It's an extremely bourgeois game in many ways. You have to never mind there is no justification in the setting in that rule book. There's no reason for this. Forget it. Okay? That's not the point. The real point is
Mm-hmm.
that if you want to get spells that are either that you don't know in your current level or that you have achieved a new level and want to get a spell or two from that new level, you just have to pay money. That's one interesting point. Another interesting point is that rogue characters who can cast spells cannot buy
Mm-hmm.
spells this way. The only place,
Okay.
unless they find like a spell scroll or something, the only way they can learn spells is to buy them from player character wizards.
Okay.
And the player is told in the text, charge what you like. Now, remember though, that means as low or as high as you like. If you would like to have a fellow spellcaster with a very useful spell around, say, okay, 1 gold piece.
Yes. Okay.
Or you may say, this fucking thing cost me 4,000 gold pieces. So we can have it in the party. If you want it too, you are going to, compensate me properly for this. So
Yeah.
things like that.